Hi, my name is Mike Dillard, and this is Self-Made Man, the podcast for those who want to leave their mark on the world and create a legacy of honor, integrity, and achievement in every aspect of your life. I'm glad you're here, and once again, it is time to forge your destiny. If you're an entrepreneur, there's a very, very good chance that you are familiar with Mr. Gary Vaynerchuk. Over the years, I've watched as Gary's built one of the biggest personal brands in the world, culminating with the launch of his very own sneaker line that launched last year with K-Swiss. Well, in addition to his personal brand, Gary's primary focus over the past few years has been the growth of his media agency, VaynerMedia. So if you're not familiar with VaynerMedia, they're basically a full-service digital marketing agency for Fortune 500 companies. If you're Budweiser, Toyota, or Pepsi, and if you're looking to implement a comprehensive digital marketing campaign across all major social platforms and devices, then Vayner is the company that you call. Within the past few years, they've grown to more than 700 employees and revenue that's now well into the 9 figures. So how did he do it? How did Gary create and scale VaynerMedia into one of the fastest growing ad agencies in the world? Well, our guest today has been a huge part of their growth. His name is James Orsini. So James is VaynerMedia's COO, and essentially he's the man behind the scenes whose primary job is to bring Gary's vision to life. So today you're going to get a completely unique look behind the curtain of Gary, how he builds his businesses, and how they've grown VaynerMedia. You're going to find out how James and Gary met, how they run and scale the business, and what you need to look for most when hiring a COO just like James for your business. Make sure that you stick around till the very end because VaynerMedia has some fantastic mentoring programs for smaller businesses and solo entrepreneurs that I was unaware of and that I think you will find incredibly valuable. Now, before we dive in, I want to apologize ahead of time for the popping noise that you're going to hear during this interview. After trying several different microphones, we finally figured out that the audio jack on James's computer was broken and there was really no way to avoid the noise. If his microphone cable moved at all, it made a little popping sound, but we've taken out as many of them as we can during the editing process, and thankfully it got a lot better as the interview went on, but I just wanted to let you know about that ahead of time. With that being said, please help me welcome the COO of VaynerMedia, James Orsini. Well, James Orsini, welcome to Self-Made Man. I am incredibly excited about our conversation today. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, Mike, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So our audience are all big fans of Gary V. I've followed him since day one. Gosh, it's been 7, 8, 9 years since he started with Wine Library and his YouTube videos. And it's been awesome to watch his progress. And now the growth of VaynerMedia over the last couple of years has been really neat to watch. And yes, you are the COO. You're the man behind the scenes running the entire operation. So I would love to know how you and Gary initially connected and how you eventually ended up at the helm there.
Oh, it's actually a funny story. I sat next to Gary's brother, AJ, about 9 years ago at a Seton Hall University basketball game. And we got to talking, and he said how he and his brother and a few other guys had just started a social media advertising company. I was chief operating officer of Saatchi & Saatchi Advertising at the time, and I asked him if he wanted to come down and see what it's like when he gets big. And he took me up on it. And we spent some time together. And businesses that either weren't right or a little too small for Saatchi, I would give him a call and he would take them. And then we sort of had a mentor relationship where he would call me up, ask if, do I know somebody who does that? Have I ever done that? How would I handle this? And so we stayed in touch. And then later, I became the CEO of a company called Cedo Mobile, which trades on the NASDAQ. And I had developers in Boise, Idaho at the time, and they developed something that they thought would be right for Facebook. It was about 4 years ago now. And they said, who can we show it to? And I said, I know this kid, AJ. He's got a social media company, so let me give him a call. And he's like, yeah, sure, come on in. And I went into this Park Avenue office, and there were 250 people there. And I was like, oh my God, this kid's got a company. This is not 4 guys in a cubicle anymore. So I had a 3-year contract with Cedo. I stood 3.5 years, and I just kind of picked up the phone and called AJ to tell him I was getting back into the big advertising space, and I'd see him again in New York City. And his question was, hey, James, have you ever met my brother Gary? And I said, no. He said, have you ever heard of my brother Gary? And I said, no. And he said, why don't you do a quick Google search? He's not going to be hard to find. And I did, and he wasn't. And I had a 15-minute meeting with him in their office. At that time, Gary and AJ actually shared the same office. And then I got a call from AJ the next day, and he said, look, good news. He likes you. He wants to have dinner with you. But he's super busy, so when he calls, it's that night and that time is your dinner. So we had a dinner together, and we really hit it off. And, his question to me was, hey, I want to build a $500 million independent, integrated international communications company. Can you help me do it? And I said, yeah, I think I can.
Well, that's amazing how it's just a bit of serendipity one day at a basketball game.
Absolutely. That's why it's so important, the networking and paying it forward. I mean, helping simply because you can and not because there was necessarily something in it for you. All those years that I was taking AJ's call, I never really envisioned that I'd be working for his company.
Yeah, that's amazing. So let me ask you, what is it like to run operations with someone like Gary, who's your typical visionary entrepreneur, as he likes to put it, head in the clouds, right? And always thinking about big picture, always on the creative side. How do you and Gary divide and conquer essentially what needs to be done to build the company?
Well, a few points of clarification and correction, right? So, yes, he speaks to the clouds, but he also speaks to the dirt, and he's in the details. Gary is truly an operating CEO. He is really all of the above. He's a creative CEO. He's a strategic CEO. He's an operating CEO. He's a visionary CEO. So he ticks a lot of boxes, and it's sort of a delicate balance to make sure that really just following his lead and helping him to execute against his vision. He's all about speed and scale, and just making sure that we're able to do that in a efficient manner is part of what I help him do.
And what is that exactly on a day-to-day basis?
It's really wherever he has the need and whatever he calls me to do. I've been fortunate enough to hold so many C-level positions over the course of a 30-plus year career, 25 of which have been in this space. And I actually, wrote an article on that. When I was a chief financial officer, I played in the HR realm. When I was a chief operating officer, I played in the legal realm. When I was a chief executive officer, I played on the client realm. So, the ability to just help grease the wheels to make sure that things like financing are fueling the vision rather than choking the vision in his own hallways. We have a term that we use called scalable organization, not to use the term process, which by its nature sounds like slow and lethargic. So, I just work with the other members of his leadership team and the 800 plus people that are here in the company to make sure that the operations are following his vision.
What are the keys to successfully scaling, as you put it a second ago?
It's taken the time to learn what 800 people do. It's really understanding what he sees as the next move in garnishing attention at a reasonable rate. So, today we're talking about impact and volume as two key differentiators for a why Vayner solution.
And what is a Vayner solution?
So I think now you would come to Vayner if you really wanted to have true impact on your marketing spend through volume content. So Gary says the internet is limitless, and people are still marketing as if it's limited, like it was in print or television. I have to get this perfect because there's only 60 pages in this magazine. This must be absolutely breathtaking because I only have 15 seconds to tell the story. And Gary's belief is that good content will be consumed at any length. We use virtually every platform to make that happen.
So a second ago, you mentioned the words impact and volume. Can you dive into that a little bit more in your philosophy around those two things?
Yeah, I think we have some client material out there right now, a Miracle Whip for our craft client, and you'll see that we are using every single social channel to promote the relevance and get people talking about the Miracle Whip product. Think of Gary, right? Look at how much volume and content he puts out. He's a media company first, and I think what I love working here and working for Gary is that he never asks a client to do something that he wouldn't or hasn't already done for himself. So for us, it's already a proven case study, and I think that's what makes people comfortable in the uncomfortable, or people comfortable in change, as we call it here. Gary's most comfortable in change.
If you were going to start a media company from scratch, we've got a lot of young entrepreneurs who are listening to this right now, many of whom, again, are very attracted to that idea and to what's happening in social. And if they were going to start a media company from scratch tomorrow, what are the most critical roles that need to be a part of that team to pull that off?
I think Gary started as VaynerMedia, and they didn't place any media. So I think that's an interesting thing. I was at Cedo Mobile. I called it a mobile media company, and at first it was a technology company. So Gary likes to work backwards from the solution. So what is it that you want to be, and then work backwards from there, even if on day one you are not that. And I believe now, he believes they're all media properties. Just myself, between the podcasting, my social presence, and my social brand, is mostly because I'm following his lead. Because the media property then gives you the liberty to do so many other things, right? So can he have his own sneaker brand as a media company? Sure. Can he have a holding company in the VaynerX model as a media company? Sure. Can he launch his own wine, in the not too distant future? Absolutely. So the media property gives you the creative liberty to play in so many other areas. And I think that's the attraction to so many entrepreneurs.
The challenge around that, though, right, is what happens to all of those businesses and assets if Gary goes away, right? When you're the driving force behind their launch and success.
It was funny because I asked that on my dinner interview. I said, Gary, how do we scale you? You're one man. And he laughed at me and he said, look, you're used to working with rock stars in the advertising industry, right? Donnie Deutsch, Kevin Roberts. He says, I'm just a rock star. And really, I don't promise, anybody me. I promise everybody access to me. So everybody has a bat phone to get to me. And when they call, I get there. And as long as I keep hiring good people to help scale me. So, we built out a leadership team here of a dozen people. He has a chief media officer, he has a chief creative officer, he has a chief production officer, he's got a chief financial officer, he's got a chief strategy officer, chief operating officer, chief heart officer, chief of staff. He's taken the time to build people. Obviously, he's one man. He's not servicing all the clients that make up everybody in this hallway.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So,
but just one point of correction: he is keenly aware of everything that's going on every client here. That's the dirt part of the clouds.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I were to come on as a VaynerMedia client today, what does that process look like? What's the onboarding process look like? What's the most important pieces of information that you guys need to find out in order to successfully run the media side of our business, essentially?
I think there's the interesting part now is we are redoing the holding company model, and there are so many ways to enter our hallways as a VaynerX client, right? So you have the traditional digital advertising company, right, which has creative and planning and account management. We have a full service media planning and buying division. We have a standalone production company. We have a digital publishing division in the gallery in PureWow. So there are so many ways to enter the hallways. And the fact of the matter is, because it's independently owned, it doesn't answer to a holding company, it doesn't answer to Wall Street, it can be discipline blind because it's one CEO, one bottom line, and it can truly give you the marketing mix that we deem most appropriate to satisfy your needs. And it's not like you have to use everything in the hallway. We have some clients that are just media clients, come here just for the media planning and buying. Don't get the creative services from us. We have others that come in just production side. We have others just on the digital publishing side. We have some, and that's our desire, obviously, to use every aspect of what it is that we offer here in the hallways. And that's really been exciting to see that develop over the 3.5+ years that I've been here.
How do you guys handle quality control when it comes to managing clients, right? Because I've had lots of experiences with different agencies, maybe when it comes to traffic or things like that. And an agency, has multiple clients by definition, right? So there might be, my account manager might have 3-4 other clients that they're managing. And what I found is that success is in the details, right? It's the choice of an image or the choice of a word that goes out, a headline, as Gary would put it, in the dirt, right? It's the detailed stuff that matters. And when you've got an account manager that's running other clients, they're busy and they're distracted. How do you guys manage that? Because it makes such a big impact with what you're doing.
We're not short of resources here, right? With over 800+ employees here. What I take from this is a fearless company operating in an industry of fear. We start the process with there's nothing that we can't do. We are confident in our ability, and we take charge. We certainly listen to what our clients have to say, but we are forceful in our approach. We have something special here. I've been in public relations, I've been in branding, I've been in general market advertising, I've been in mobile media. This is a very, very special place, led by a very special and fearless leader who's just not afraid to make a mistake. It's okay if we make a mistake. We'll come clean on it. We're not going to hide it. We are not fearful that we're going to lose a piece of business. We're moving swiftly with enormous volumes of content. Look at Gary's own persona and brand. Okay, when you have that much content, perfection doesn't matter. We could take something down if it's a mistake, or there's another piece of content to follow up. You're not talking about doing a television commercial twice a year. You're talking about volumes of content being pushed out on multiple channels and making sure that we are garnishing the audience attention, flooding them with content that some of which they gravitate to and some of which they don't. And that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So from a COO perspective, that's one of the most critical roles that a founder could hire. What tips do you have for entrepreneurs out there when it comes to hiring the right person for that role?
Well, you have to hire somebody who complements you, right? So Gary did not need a yes man. He had a lot of people willing to say yes to everything he did. He hired me and he said, listen, you made 25 years of mistakes I don't want to make. So help me, literally help me avoid the potholes and move faster. So, people ask me all the time, who's your admin? I said, I don't have an admin. Who works for you? I said, nobody works for me. They're like, well, how do you get stuff done? I said, because I take the time to understand what 800 people do, and I'm able to help connect those dots. I don't want to be limited to the capacity of a 2-person department. So I think, and I tell them all the time, I thought he was brilliant for hiring me. I mean, it was a big investment early on. One of the first of his leadership team have helped him and have been a part of others that help bring others in. Some of my own personal contacts, some that I have known, and some that I was part of a team that said, yeah, we should do this.
What are the key metrics that your role is essentially measured by, right? Like, what are the metrics for success that a great COO should be measured by?
I think well, Gary asked me, can you describe what you do in one sentence? And I said, yeah, I take dreams and visions and turn them into action plans. And he said, okay, great, you're hired. So, that was, that was an easy interview. And sometimes I'm a COO who realizes how lonely a CEO position is. Being the CEO of a publicly traded company was a hard role. It was a lonely role. And, there's a lot on your shoulders when you're a CEO. And, sometimes just having somebody else in the hallway who understands that could be comforting. He is not afraid to make any decision and live by the decision. But he observes, he takes in counsel. He does listen. He listens as well. He describes himself as a moldable dictator, which I think is great.
So, fun question for you here, James, before we wrap up today. Gary's obviously his big goal is to buy the New York Jets, and that's been a fun goal for all of us, as fans of his to participate in, right, and to root for. From a practical standpoint, that's obviously one of his dreams. If that's your job description, right, is to take his dreams and help them become a reality. How are you guys doing that?
Well, I think it's funny because he does say on the day he buys the Jets, that will likely be the saddest day of his life because he would have accomplished a lifelong goal.
Right, absolutely.
But generally speaking, the VaynerX model is a test lab. So we are constantly testing and optimizing. This is a fail fast, fix fast, learn fast environment. And his goal is not necessarily to sell VaynerMedia to a holding company or any other. That's not how he intends to amass the wealth. His goal is to buy orphaned or abandoned brands and run them through his marketing machine to then increase the value of those brands and then kind of spin them off. I mean, at the end of the day, I think he probably wants to be more like a Procter & Gamble than he does a Droga 5. He wants to actually own the products and increase their value. So that's why we have so many things in these hallways that you wouldn't have in a normal advertising company per se. Whether it's a smart product division, an e-commerce division, a beta small business division. He's got a lot of things in these hallways that work backwards from the end goal. Remember earlier on we talked about working backwards from what it is that you want to do. Everything that he does is predicated on amassing enough wealth to eventually buy the Jets. So that's the backdrops to decisions being made. Is this going to help me get there?
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's something that Tony Robbins talks about a lot. When people who have these lifelong goals reach that moment of accomplishment, I believe it was Buzz Aldrin he used as an example when Buzz stood on the moon, right? Mm-hmm. And came back and was unbelievably depressed. Yeah. It's like, what's the point of my life now? What am I doing? And it's going to be really interesting. I know Gary's well aware of that, and it's going to be really interesting to see what he chooses as his next goal after that.
You're right. Right.
Which is
we're still a little ways from amassing several billion to buy them. So there's work to be done here. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. If someone wanted to contact you guys and talk to you about becoming a client, who is your ideal, let's just say minimum client, right? Because we've got a lot of founders and startups here. We're not doing a podcast with a bunch of 10-figure company owners. What's kind of the minimum criteria in order to make a company a good fit for you guys?
Well, we do look, let's face it, this company is really built to handle Fortune 100 type clients, but we do have some smaller offerings that allow us to do that, right? You can have an entry level a seat at the table in one of our 4Ds for $10,000, where it's a day in the life of VaynerMedia, and you get to see behind the curtain, and Gary himself shows up in that room. So that's meant for small business.
And what is that exactly? The 4Ds?
Think of it like a Zappos or a Disney, where you actually come in for a full day immersion. We rotate leadership through, and you'll talk about the strategy and creative and influencers and e-commerce, and you'll get a nice smattering of all that can be done. We've probably run, I guess, about 14 or 15 to date. Everyone has been sold out. It's a small room of about 12. And, Gary is in there for about an hour, so you actually get to ask a pointed question to him directly. These are all on our website, by the way. And then, we have a Vayner Beta, which is for some smaller businesses. We have a new program called Vayner Mentors, which are meant from businesses between 2 million and 25 million, not necessarily startups, but these are mature businesses that are just stuck, right? They haven't been able to break through a ceiling. And the mentorship program, which I'm actively involved in as well, is for explosive and meaningful growth. It's a 6-week program, and we put skin in the game. Should we unlock the growth over a 3-year period, we actually share in the profits. That's an entry level of about 150,000. So we have a few things that could be of interest. All of these are on the website as well.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, James, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. This was really, really insightful, and it's neat to see what you guys are doing and to hear your story of how you became involved. This has been great.
Great. I hope your audience finds value with it.
Absolutely. Where can folks go to connect with you? I know you're pretty active on Medium, but is there a preferred channel?
Yeah, I'm Jimmy the Pencil on Twitter, James Orsini on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Medium, as you said.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, James, thank you again. This was great. Folks, if you feel like you're a fit for what VaynerMedia is doing on VaynerX, please give them a call. Reach out to Jimmy on Twitter or LinkedIn as well. And I think those programs are awesome that you guys are doing that, and you're making or creating opportunities for startups to get involved with you and to learn from you. So that's really neat.
Great. Yeah, it's Gary's got a passion for the entrepreneur. So we wanted to make sure that we have several things in our hallways that could be right for them.
Awesome. Well, James Orsini, thank you so much once again. And guys, gals, thank you as always for listening. We'll see you next week. Take care.